The Galactic Academy of Historical Preservation stood as a monument to the collected knowledge of 47 species, its crystalline spires reaching toward the stars like fingers grasping at forgotten memories. Within its halls, students from across known space gathered to study the ancient ways of their ancestors, to preserve what was, and to understand what had been lost to time. Julie Martinez sat in the back of Professor Zelthar's xenoarchaeology class, her datapad flickering with notes as the insectoid professor clicked and chittered about the semester's final assignment. Around her, students of various species shifted. In their adaptive seats, a Vorian's tentacles coiled nervously, a Krenth's crystalline body hummed with anticipation, and Leonardo Chen, the only other human in the class, leaned back with his characteristic smirk. "Your final project," Professor Zelthar announced, his mandibles clacking with emphasis, "will be to recreate a piece of ancient armor from your species' warrior past. You will research, design, and present a functional replica. This is worth 40% of your grade." The classroom erupted in excited chatter. The Vorian spoke of ceremonial shell plates from the Third Tide Wars. The Krenth mentioned resonance armor that had protected their kind during the frequency conflicts. Each species had their ancient, martial history, carefully preserved in museums and archives, safely distant from the present. Professor Zelthar's compound eyes fixed on the two humans. "And what of humanity? What will you present?" Leonardo raised his hand lazily. "How ancient are we talking, Professor?" "At least 500 standard years old. True historical artifacts, not modern reproductions." Julie saw Leonardo's smirk widen into something that made her distinctly uncomfortable. She'd known him for 3 semesters now, and that expression never meant anything good. "Professor," Leonardo said, standing up, "I have a question about the assignment parameters." "Proceed." "You said recreate ancient armor. Do you want mine cleaned or bloodstained?" The classroom fell silent. Professor Zelthar's antennae twitched in confusion. "I do not understand the question, Mr. Chen." "Well," Leonardo continued, his voice taking on an educational tone that Julie recognized as deeply dangerous, "I'm just wondering if you want historical accuracy. Because humans didn't really stop using armor 500 years ago. We just changed what we made it from." Julie closed her eyes. She knew what was coming. "Mr. Chen, humanity's medieval period ended long before 500 years ago. Your species has been spacefaring for over 2 centuries. Surely your ancient armor is safely cataloged in museums." "Oh, it is," Leonardo agreed. "But the assignment said ancient armor from our warrior past. And humans have never really stopped having a warrior past." He pulled up a holographic display from his personal device. Images flickered into existence above his desk. Suits of armor that made several students recoil. Not the gleaming plate mail of knights or the ornate samurai yoroi one might expect, but something far more recent and far more visceral. "This is a flak jacket from Earth's 20th century," Leonardo explained, expanding one image, "designed to stop shrapnel from explosive devices. This one has bloodstains from the Battle of Normandy, 1944. It's 681 years old." Another image appeared. "This is ceramic composite body armor from the Afghan conflicts, circa 2010. It stopped 3 rifle rounds before the wearer was killed by a 4th, still has the bullets embedded in it. 615 years old." Julie watched Professor Zelthar's exoskeleton pale to a sickly gray-green. Around the classroom, students who had come from species that had known true peace for millennia looked ill. "This," Leonardo continued, clearly warming to his subject, "is reactive ablative armor from the Martian Independence War 2187. It's only 438 years old, so maybe too recent for the assignment. But it's interesting because it was designed to explode outward when hit, directing the blast away from the wearer. My great-great-grandfather wore this. He survived. The armor didn't." "Mr. Chen," Professor Zelthar's voice wavered, "perhaps we should discuss—" "And this," Leonardo interrupted, his tone still conversational but his eyes hard, "is a trauma plate from the First Contact War, 2198. Some of you might remember learning about that one. The war that happened because the Vraxel Concordat assumed humanity would roll over when they claimed Sol system. This plate took a plasma bolt meant for a soldier's heart. She lived, wore it for the next 40 engagements, never cleaned the blood off. Said it reminded her what she was fighting for. Julie finally stood up. "Leonardo, that's enough." He looked at her, and for a moment, she saw past the smirk to something older, something that carried the weight of a species that had clawed its way up from prey animal to apex predator and had never quite forgotten how. "Is it, Julie?" The professor wanted ancient armor. Every species in this room has ancient armor because they stopped needing it. They evolved past violence, found peace, built civilizations that haven't seen war in thousands of years. He gestured around the room. "That's beautiful, that's wonderful, that's not us." He turned back to Professor Zelthar. "Humans have armor from 500 years ago because we were still killing each other 500 years ago, 100 years ago, 50 years ago. We have armor because we've never stopped needing it. Our museums aren't filled with relics of a violent past we've moved beyond. They're filled with equipment our grandparents used, that our parents remember, that we hope our children won't need but know they probably will." The silence in the classroom was absolute. Julie stepped forward, her voice quiet but clear. "What Leonardo's failing to mention, Professor, is that human armor evolved not just because we fought each other, but because we learned to protect each other. Every innovation in armor came because someone, somewhere, wanted their people to come home. That flak jacket, designed by a father who'd lost a son. The ceramic plates, funded by veterans who remembered friends dying. We made better armor because we valued the lives it protected." She looked at Leonardo. "We're not proud of our violence, Professor, but we're also not ashamed of our survival. The assignment asked for ancient armor from our warrior past. Leonardo's right. We have it. More than we'd like. But the fact that it exists, that it was bloodstained and used and needed, is exactly why we're here now. Why we've joined the galactic community. Why we value peace." Professor Zelthar was quiet for a long moment. Then his mandibles clicked softly, a gesture Julie had learned meant contemplation. "I believe," he said finally. "I understand now why the Galactic Council was so cautious about accepting humanity, and why they eventually did." He looked at both humans. "For your project, you may work together. Present not just the armor, but its context. Help us understand." As the class dismissed, Julie caught Leonardo's arm. "Next time, maybe start with the context?" He shrugged, but the hard edge had left his eyes. "Where's the fun in that? We're supposed to be ambassadors for our species, Leo." "I know," he said softly. "That's why I told the truth. They need to know what we are, all of it. The violence and the compassion, the armor and the reasons we made it." Julie sighed but nodded. He wasn't wrong. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not by pretending to be something it wasn't, but by being honest about what it had been and what it hoped to become. The armor would tell that story. Blood, ceramic, and all.